buttons are.
Good. Very good. All right, so we're on.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Michelle Plazic, Remax Realty Advantage, and this is
Kim Malden, Remax Realty Advantage.
And we're here to talk about real estate terms today. We're
Yes.
once again in the beautiful Imagine Homes model at Monteverde. What's the address, Kim?
Oh, gosh.
Amelia Way. I know that.
Yes. If you come TPC Parkway to the driveway to the Hill Country Resort, you'll come right past us. So look for the signs for the model homes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, the big flags, big, giant waving flags at you.
Beautiful home. We were here the last time and we filmed from the kitchen area. So
We did.
today we're filming from the living room, and so you can see the kitchen.
So we just turned it around. So
Today we're talking about real estate terms.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of questions. I think on my Facebook page, the question that came up was, what is escrow?
yeah, I just had that conversation yesterday with someone too. So that's a good one.
You want to start?
No, you go ahead.
Well, escrow is simply something of value being held by a third party. In our case, in regards to real estate, it's usually money that's held in escrow. And so there's like 3 different areas. It can be what is escrow in regards to the contract with real estate, or when you're talking to your mortgage lender, it might be a little bit different. So let's talk about what it means to us as realtors.
Right.
One of the very first things that we do once we enter into a contract is that we accept earnest money from the buyer. And if we were to give that earnest money to the seller, then we wouldn't really necessarily be sure that it was going to make it to the right place at the end.
Right.
If the buyer wanted
Exactly.
to cancel, you can see where there would be difficulty
Right.
in getting that money back. So we have to put it with a third party who's not a party to the contract.
Right.
And so usually that's a title company.
Yeah, and I always tell people, you know, a lot of times you'll hear, oh, they're just going to hold that check. They're not actually going to deposit it. They do deposit it. The title company does put it in their escrow bank account. So that you're going to see it come out of your bank account. It's going to sit in their account. And then if you close, when you close, it's applied to your costs on the sale.
That money is in limbo pretty much, and neither the buyer nor the seller can get it out without the other person's signature. That's very important, because you want to make sure as a buyer and a seller that you stay in compliance with the contract during that escrow period, so that you have the right to get that money if you're entitled to it, or if the seller's entitled to it in accordance with the contract.
Right.
Hopefully your realtor is going to explain all that to you.
If they don't, come see us.
Yeah.
So, and then I think people think of escrow, you know, when we talk about your taxes and your insurance, when you make your monthly mortgage payment. A lot of times when you make your monthly mortgage payment, you're paying your principal and interest for your house, but you also have an escrow account that holds the money that is going to be paid for your taxes and for your insurance each year. So that's another escrow.
In this case, your lender is the third party that's holding your money. You're paying it on a monthly basis, and they're holding it in that account. So it's anything that's held in third party.
Hey, Scott Stout. He says, hi, Michelle.
Hey! I'm glad you can see it because I can't.
I know. That's why I'm reading for you.
Thanks. And so what else? What else could be an escrow?
Well, I think, you know, when we talk about, like, when we look at our list of things going on, when we have things in escrow, it's when we just have an active contract. So it's that period of time again. I think that covers escrow, doesn't it?
Sometimes there are times in a contract where something will be held in escrow even after you close.
Yes.
And that might be, let's say, for example, if there's a repair to be made by the seller, you've agreed as a buyer and seller that a repair is supposed to be made, and the seller forgets and doesn't do it on time, and we still can close, and then money can be held back in escrow until it's time for the bill to be paid, and the title company will pay it. So, but you can see anything that is held by a third party is called in escrow.
Right.
What were some of the other questions? I think the other one was title insurance.
Title insurance, yep.
First of all, what is title? Most of you will probably know what title is when it's in reference to your car.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing when you have title to a house. If you have title to a house, you just want to make sure you're the owner.
Right, right, and that nothing is going to come back to you from the person who owned it previously.
Mm-hmm. So that is getting title to your house. So title insurance is pretty much insurance that ensures that the title and the ownership are accurate.
Right.
So different from any other insurance that we get, because regular insurance, when we think of car insurance, it protects us from things that are going to happen in the future.
In the future, yes.
This is insurance for things that have happened in the past.
In the past, exactly. So let's say I bought a house from Joe Smith, and Joe Smith had a pool put in, but he never paid for it. Well, the title company, when they're researching for insurance, if there's a lien against Joe Smith and his house, they're going to find that and clear it before I purchase the home. If they don't find it, this is where title insurance comes into play. Mm-hmm. You want to take over?
Sure. After 15 years of doing real estate in my career, I've never really had anybody complain about a problem with title except until this last year. One of my clients called me and said that they got a notice in the mail saying that they were going to foreclose on her property. And she said, I've never heard of these people. Come to find out, there was a lien that was actually filed after she closed, but it was on the people that previously owned it. So it was a little scary there for a while because she thought, I'm going to lose my house.
Yeah.
And we ended up calling the title insurance company that gave her the insurance, and she was protected. So thankfully, she was able to keep her house.
Absolutely.
There are different types of title insurance policy. There's the owner's policy and the lender's policy. If you have a loan, you're taking out a mortgage, your lender will require that you have what
hey,
he's
Shelley.
saying.
He said good info. And Shelley just joined.
Oh, hey, Shelley.
So good deal.
So if you have a lender with your purchase of your house, you are definitely going to have title insurance for a lender's policy.
Hey, Janet.
And this will ensure your lender's investment.
Yeah, their investment. Yeah, to make sure that they're secure.
Yeah, so they want to know that there's a clear title, that there aren't any problems, that there aren't any liens, and if there were liens, that they have definitely been corrected. So that's for the lender. So let's say, for example, there was a claim. You have to have two types of policies, because if you only had a lender's policy and not the owner's policy, then what could happen is the lender would get their investment, but you'd lose your house. They'd get their money, but you'd be gone because you're not the owner anymore.
Right.
So you have to have your own owner's insurance as well.
Yes. And, you know, a lot of times when we're looking at the contract and we're talking about closing costs, and title policies come in when we're talking about closing costs, you know, the buyer has theirs, the seller has theirs. So it's not something you want to skip over.
No, definitely not. And typically in the state of Texas anyway, it's very typical for the seller to pay for the owner's policy, and then the buyer will pay for the lender's policy. It doesn't have to be that way. It is a negotiable item, but that's pretty much what's standard practice.
Yeah.
Do you need title insurance? I would say it's the best investment. You don't want to lose that house.
Yeah.
You know, the nice thing about title insurance is you pay it one time. It's not like other insurance where you have to keep paying on a monthly basis.
Exactly.
This is one time you pay it and it's done. It covers you for the life of your ownership.
Yes.
So I think it's definitely something that you want to do.
Absolutely.
Money well spent.
It is. It is very well spent. I mean, just like your client, you know, experienced that little jolt of fear, but she didn't lose her house because she was protected.
Right.
So yeah, definitely money well spent.
Any other questions, you think? Any other questions out there about escrow or title?
Janet, Scott, Smiley, anybody got anything you want to ask about?
Or something else?
Yeah, or something else.
We're doing vocab 101 here today.
Just at work, Smiley. Yeah, so we're doing vocabulary, and I think this is one that we'll probably do quite often because there's a lot of PMI removal. That's a good one, Scott. We just talked about that one too.
So PMI is private mortgage insurance, also known as mortgage insurance premium. So you'll hear it referred to as either PMI or MIP. And getting it removed is simply removed. And it also depends. They can have it removed on an FHA as well.
Yeah.
If you bought it prior to whenever that date cutoff was, where they stopped it.
That was a while ago.
I think it was a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I learned yesterday, if you pay the 20% on the conventional, if you put the 20% down, you don't have the mortgage insurance protection. But if you do 15%, say, then you don't have as much of it to pay. But then you have to get to 22% equity, which I thought was interesting. I was just sitting down with a lender yesterday, and I did not know that. So you actually have to get to 22%. They want that little extra tidbit in there for some reason or another.
Well,
so I was surprised to learn that yesterday, but
that must have been from Shelley, right?
Yeah.
So Shelley, you're on there, but I wish you could comment, but that's probably too long of an answer. I've never heard that before. We had ours removed with 20% once we got to 20%.
Yeah. And I did that on my FHA. That was years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is you have to call. If
Right.
you're waiting for it to get removed, you have to call. Keep calling.
They will not do it automatically, Scott. You
Yeah.
have to make that request.
Yeah, you've got to call.
And they'll send somebody out to do an appraisal. Unless, of course, you can. Sometimes they won't. If it's very obvious, then you can send them some some comps and call me. I'll get you some comps in your neighborhood and get you what the value of your house is. If it's real close, you're probably going to have an appraiser come out and make sure that you are at that 20%. Good question. Thank you.
Very good. Absolutely.
And I think we're done. We're up with our 10 minutes. But unless there's any other questions, real quick.
No.
We'll see you next week, every Wednesday at 12:30.
At 12:30.
Thanks. Bye,
Bye.
guys.